So we're away in the first race of the afternoon, the Princess Royal Challenge Cup. It's Vos of Netherlands against Liu from China.
Nice clean start from both crews. That initial look when they both sort of kicked towards each other through the centre of the course, and obviously there's no buoy lines between the two crews, so it means, especially in the sort of single sculls, there's a very sort of quiet intensity when those two boats come together.
Quiet intensity, exactly what we can see on the face of Liu here, and really rhythmical and consistent, but it looks like the Dutch scullers absolutely with her neck and neck, stroke to stroke at the moment.
Yeah, it's an excellent start from both crews, and there's that feeling of, you know, what's so surprising in this course to race down is, even though from the back you'll look like there's kind of a nice margin between it, you'll feel very, very close to the opposition.
Yeah, I think as you said that, they were just coming a little bit together, and they just steered a little bit apart now, just coming off the edge of the island. It is quite breezy today still. I've seen some of the awnings gusting, and off the edge of the island we've seen a few crews a bit challenged on the steering, but no challenge here for the two of these. It's turning out to be a great race so far, nothing in it whatsoever.
Yeah, they're both handling conditions brilliantly. So as we saw, the Dutch sculler just slightly adjusting her line to make sure she did cope with that sort of slight kick of the wind and pulled straight back in, but they're just matching each other stroke for stroke as they come down this part of the course.
And as you look at this, it's a great shot to see the styles of the two scullers. Anything you notice in the different approach that they're taking technically? Yeah,
you can see the Dutch sculler slightly undulating, slightly lower, longer with it. The Chinese sculler, if anything, keeping up at a slightly livelier pace. And the thing with all rowing, with all racing, there's no real right or wrong. You know, unless it's very extreme, you can probably see problems. But what you see is it depends on that physique of the natural athlete. And actually, in a single scull more than anything, you can really make that style match the boat class. So you don't need to, you know, be in rhythm with anyone else in a single scull. You have to make sure what works for you naturally can work well in the boat.
Great point. I guess because it's only you don't have to adapt to anybody else. You just find the best way to scull for your physiology. And I suppose that's what we're seeing here. Slightly sort of shorter, punchier stroke perhaps from the Chinese sculler, Liu, nearest to the camera. And she'd maybe taken, what, quarter to half a length at this point?
I don't know if it's that far, Matt. I mean, the camera angles always gives a sort of guessing mark down the course. But at the moment, it's a really good example of, you know, the boats can move at the same speed and in different styles between two different countries, two different crews.
Lovely shot of the sunlight on the oars there. And you're looking at the sort of the depth of the oar going in the water and how cleanly it moves in and out. And Liu's got a very nice clean style, hasn't she?
And what you want to see is once the oar is covered, so once the blade goes into the water, actually as horizontal a sweep as you can. So you don't want it to go too deep. And the thing with the single is it's constant adjustment, because it's, you know, it's just you can feel how the boat's moving. You know that any change in the boat is down to you, your individual sort of style. So again, you're not reacting to anyone else around you, you're just making sure your blades are doing exactly what you need them to do. And
there's the oars of Vos, the Dutch sculler there, looking also flat. Flat is fast, they say, I think, in sailing, and the same is true in rowing, isn't it?
I would hope so. I'm not a sailor. I wouldn't be able to pretend to be even
too
bigger
busy
than that.
rowing all those years.
Too busy. I'd rather use the wind in my favour like sailing does. They're very wise, those sailors. But it does look like the Chinese sculler has probably pushed out a little bit on the Dutch at this point.
I think also over the lunch break, if you were watching earlier today, I think the wind has calmed down a little, which is giving these two fantastic women scullers a little bit of less of a challenge than some of the crews had this morning. It was really very swirly and gusty. But we'll see as we get into the wider part in the middle of the course here. They're through the first third of the course. You can just see on the left they're approaching the halfway mark of falling.
And the Chinese sculler sort of dropped her rating a little bit, which probably means she's settling a bit more. She's only got maybe half a length, three-quarters of a length lead, but it's enough to let her bring that rate slightly down, maybe lengthen out. And what you're trying to do is become the most efficient length, sort of every power per stroke, moving out an inch at a time on your opposition.
And she's trying to do that just now, isn't she? I think there's a bit of a move going on here. Very, very conscious of each other, particularly in the singles, aren't you? Just two of you on the water. So it really is, you know, psychological as well as technical.
Yeah, I agree entirely. It's such a psychological sort of competition at this point. You know, physically it's going to start to really hurt, but you know that in the middle of the race it really does test you physically, but actually where it tests you psychologically, especially if, like the Dutch sculler, you're a little bit behind, you still very much will have your opposition in the corner of your eye, but you're going to try and get back on terms and maybe put some pressure on the Chinese sculler, because as soon as you feel like you're starting to move back, it asks more of the Chinese sculler of how you're going to respond.
And as you say that, I think that Nienke Vos in the Dutch boat there, looking across, she was the Olympic spare. She is the Olympic spare for the Dutch team, so she's got a thing or two she might want to prove here. She's having a go at attacking. But it looks to me like Lou is just holding her off, not trying to raise it too much, but just an extra little push there to keep her away.
Yeah, I think we saw Lou just respond. And again, ideally, it's one of those things as an athlete, if from the outside, the watching eyes we're doing now, you don't actually see what changes, you just see the reaction of the boat. So this is when scullers are really in tune with their boat, is that you can put an extra bit of work down, maybe raise the rate slightly. There's different ways of obviously picking up the speed of your boat, but actually from the outside eye, nothing looks like it's changed, just the boat speed has improved.
So not much in it as we come through into the third quarter of the race, often the time when, and you know, these people have been side by side, the legs will really be starting to burn, and you need a bunch of experience to keep the technique as clean as possible. Little glance over her shoulder from Vos. Does that mean she's about to attack again? Looks like Lou's eased out a bit further.
And it'll definitely, for Vos, that feeling of I don't want her to get any more. I don't want that natural break. When there's over a length between them, then suddenly there does feel like that gap just grows and grows. So there's going to be I want to hold on tight, especially as we're not quite in that final sprint stage yet. There's still a bit of the course to go, but you want to be in contact so that when you lift the rate, and I think we've seen the Dutch sculler just lift the rate there to try and close that gap.
Yeah, desperate to stay in contact. Of course, you can't really see anymore. She does have to do that glance over the shoulder, and here's Vos really going for it now. It's do or die time for her, isn't it? She's got to hang on, and maybe she's got a bit of a sprint in her, but she's up against, you know, the national champion from China, who's fourth in the single in the World Cup. So both of these are really high quality international rowers. Another little glance there.
It is a great race to watch. These are women at the top of their game, really impressive scullers in their own country and recognised for that. And it's actually, this match racing really does bring out a different element of test of you as an athlete, of what you can do, and almost, in a single scull, you have to make decisions on your own, how you're going to react, how you're going to close the gap, when you're going to, do you go early, do you delay it a bit more, how much have you got left in the tank? Almost your brain is constantly making judgments about when to make the move and when's the right time.
Well, it's got to be the time now for Vos. She's held this position just under, just a little bit more of a gap that has opened up again, in under 400 metres to go now as they reach the enclosures where all the spectators are, and you'll start to see them come to the front to see what's happening. This first race of the afternoon here on Friday at Henley Regatta. You're looking at Vos is back there, a little bit poppy water, isn't it? She's just starting to waddle around a bit more, and Lou, to me, looks like she's making a bit of the better of the conditions sitting there ahead.
I think we saw Vos, lift the rate a bit to see if she could narrow that gap we've talked about, and actually it hasn't really worked. So I think then you start looking across and thinking, okay, I've not made the impact I expected to in that move I made. And now, they feel the crowds. As soon as you get into the grandstand moment, you're getting towards the end, and you're kind of going through your, what else do I have left in this to throw at the opposition, and you're running out of options soon.
Yeah, so she's rummaging in her technical and tactical tool chest and not finding anything that's working at this point, but maybe she's got something else left. It's going to be, well, the final sort of 200-300 metres now for Vos, who's been trailing through the race, but not by much until probably the last kind of 300 or 400 metres when she's having another glance, so having another attack. She's not giving up. It's fantastic. And
what I think, effectively these crews are pretty much at the same speed, and they're actually very, very well matched. It's just that the Chinese sculler has got that little bit out, that little margin that gives you a bit of comfort to be able to react and respond as and when you need to. And from the Dutch point of view, you're always chasing, you're always trying to find something more to close the gap, and that physically and sort of emotionally takes a lot out of you.
Just having a glance over her shoulder, making sure she doesn't come too close to these booms. You don't want to mess up, as we've seen one or two crews over the years do with the booms as they approach the finish line. 4 or 5 strokes and the race will be done for Lou. She looks again, where is that line? Can't come too soon for her. 112 metres more than she's used to, of course.
She is, but she's taken that rate down. She knows she's kind of got enough to cover any move that the Dutch sculler might have now.
Well, Lou crosses the line first ahead of Vos. A win for her in the Princess Royal Challenge Cup. Great first race of the afternoon. 2 scullers at the top of their game.